back over to Netflix and Friends, and we're going to talk American Primeval.
Yeah.
Now, Sharon, you have seen the entire season of American Primeval.
Yes.
Sean, you have seen the first three episodes or so. So
Yes.
we're going to say, Sharon, take it away, and then, and obviously no spoilers for Sean, but let's see if Sean can tell us what he's thought about the first three episodes. But Sharon, first of all, tell us about this.
Okay, yeah. American Primeval is set in the American Northwest, sort of Utah into sort of North Wyoming, and it's that Northwest part area of America. And this is set in 1850s, so before the American Civil War, before the West is completely opened out. It's when it's still very much tribal lands, and very much that the settlers are very much aliens in that environment, and there's conflicts between different peoples. There's conflicts between the indigenous peoples. A lot of the Mormons who have been driven west are like trying to fight for their position, and then you've got the army, and then you've got the old like mountain men who've been there for a long time, who like have coexisted with this sort of the indigenous peoples. So you've got this sort of conflict there, and in all this, you drop this one woman who's there with her young son. I don't think he's quite teenage yet, but he's like a young boy, and they are arrived at the end of the line. Literally, they got off the train, and that's the train ends. The rail ends. They haven't
They
finished
haven't built
building
anything
and
else.
gone to the railway, so they literally are, yeah, end of line. And they're expecting a guide to take them across sort of the mountains to where there's a as an established town. So they pay for this guide, and then she thinks it's just going to be a simple matter of, okay, I've got off the train, or I'll get on a horse, you'll just ride there, easy, just like back east. And it's like she's in a different world, she's in a different century when she suddenly is dropped into this wilderness, basically. And she starts off by with her guide, and then something goes awry, and she ends up having to join a wagon train, and then she joins this wagon train, and then things go awry there. And so you see this story through mainly through her eyes, but while she's on her journey, she encounters these other people, and
Mm.
their story gets drawn into hers. And so it then sort of diverges, and then it all comes together again towards the end. But where it sort of diverges, you follow these different sort of points of view. You've got this woman who's sort of, we find out as the story goes on what she's fleeing from and what she's heading to. And then the people she encounters, they're sort of going through a state of like trying to um, self-awareness almost. They're becoming aware of their environments, aware of the issues involving the indigenous peoples, and they're aware of the conflict between the Mormons, the army, and the mountain men, as it were, who've been there for a long
Yeah.
time. And so it's brutal. It's primeval in that it sort of the civilization is like stripped away. They're saying when you move into this environment, you but you basically leave everything that you've known behind. You're moving into sort of, wilderness, untamed territory, the primeval, because it is savage and it is brutal and it is uncivilized.
Mm.
So you see this. They've stripped some of the glamour away from like that, the myth, some of the myths of the West, to
Yeah.
expose it in all its sort of grim, dirty, bloody, violent sort
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
nasty people in it. Some
Yeah,
nasty,
because
nasty people.
grim, and violent are two words I keep hearing about this show, and yeah, and well, with
and the
obviously,
violence, some of it is something that's very sudden, and some of it is like very violent very quickly.
Yeah.
So like some people, there's a couple of shootings in it, and instead of it being like, they heard, hey, we're sort of, sort of standing off against each other and drawing your guns and like a fair fight of fisticuffs in the old style, it's like while someone's not looking, they're suddenly like they are shot, and it
yeah,
goes from like 0 to 60 in violent terms
yeah.
without maybe
Uh,
that much warning.
okay, so
Sharon recommended this to me. She said she'd be interesting for me to see it. So I quite
and so
liked it.
far, what do you reckon, Sean?
There's a slight historical aspect to it with Fort Bridger, Jim Bridger, because Jim Bridger is an actual real character that
Yeah.
was, in fact, he was pretty damn amazing, really, how he started out and what he did and what he accomplished. So, and he's formed like this. I really like the scene. I did think though, Sharon, and I'm sorry to say this, those arrows were remarkably fast, and I'm sure
Oh,
that
they were.
go.
They're like
They're
rocket
like,
propelled
yeah,
arrows.
phew, phew. And like you say, that jump bit where you've got the ladies talking, and it's like phew, 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 phew. That I found that I thought, those arrows were flying a bit too thick and
Yeah.
fast for my liking and whizzing at like 5,000 miles an hour. And and they were incredibly lucky as well. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying
No. But
it's
do you
quite
have
enjoyable, the
anything?
story itself.
Yeah.
And it's very brutal. So I could give you, I need to see the whole thing through. So I will be continue. You know, it's not like, ugh, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah. You're not bored so far.
I'm not bored. No, I'm not bored with it. But I do got. But I think that's probably, like Sharon said, done for 0 to 60. She nailed it. It just goes. You know, it's for, because I mean that is a big that scene I'm talking about. You know, when the first arrow sort of appears. It's like, well, that come out of nowhere, and then it's just mayhem. You know, so I quite
Yeah.
like that being on
Yeah. Because apparently this is written by the same guy who wrote The Revenant.
The
And
Revenant. Yeah, you can
Yeah,
see, you can actually see, because especially the scout guy
Yes.
he looks just like Tom Hardy
well,
or
like the trappers. Well,
like,
okay.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so with that big of with me, anything that has to do with this whole thing and like the formation of America and Australia, it hits all my
Yeah.
colonial buttons, and I start going, well, does it focus on the Native Americans? But I'm not even going to ask any about that. I just want to two questions. How many stars would you give it?
What
I
me? I'm
put-
based on the
Oh
three
no,
episodes.
no, Sharon, because Sharon's seen the whole thing.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go,
yeah.
Sharon.
That's it. Yeah,
I'd probably give it a 4 because it kept me going all the way to the end. Sort of, I sort of went. Sometimes you watch 2 or 3 and you go, you know what? Should I watch the rest? If I was like, okay, I'm watching it. I was like, zoom. So I literally watched the whole thing over like 2-3 days.
Sharon recommended it, and I did try to get
And
it
I
in.
thought-
Sharon, I did try to. Do you remember you said to me? You said, "Oh, I don't know if you."
Yeah, I knew you were going to watch the whole thing, but I was like,
No,
I said to him on Monday, only Monday, I was like, check this out because I think
Yeah.
there's nothing here that you'd be interested in about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I did.
All right.
I enjoyed Jim Bridger. I loved him as a character.
All right, so okay, Sean, you can watch it and let us know what you thought, like in a report back next
Catch
week.
up on it.
And
Yeah.
the other thing is, when you were talking about how brutal it was and everything like that, some of the things you were saying reminded me of the English. So, you remember the English
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
Emily
I
Blunt?
do. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember the English. Yeah,
And
that
what's
was
his,
I
was it
enjoyed
Chasky
that, actually,
Spencer?
remember.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
which one's more brutal, the English or this?
this I think, Sharon.
Yeah.
Would you say
This is more brutal, yeah.
this is more brutal?
Oh, okay.
Because let's just
All
say
right.
there's some. Well, I mean, Indians are going to do it. Well, anybody's going to do it anyway. There's some sort of scalping that goes on. So
All right. Okay,
Definitely more
cool.
brutal.
So that's 4 stars for American Primeval, a show that I'm honest, I'm probably never going to watch.